Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You good? Everything good?
I'm good, man. This is my best attempt to cosplay as Dreamcatcher minus the mask.
You did it. It was my first. I was like, oh, he's Dreamcatcher.
Well, I'm so excited to talk to you. Obviously, I think Dreamcatcher looks so amazing, and I can't wait to watch it when it comes on VOD. But before we get into that, I would like to get into your Marvel background because I guess we have like a mutual friend, Steph, who is a visual effects supervisor for Guardians of the Galaxy, Thor, Dark World. I guess you worked on those movies also, right?
Soretti, Stefan Soretti.
Yes, I can never pronounce his last name.
Yeah. Oh, he's great.
Yeah. I told him I was interviewing. I was like, oh, tell him I said hi. So I was like, all right.
That's amazing. Yeah, he's I met him first on the first Guardians film. And then I think maybe he did some of Dark World, but Guardians is when I kind of was more working hand in hand with him. But great guy. Yeah.
Cool. So what you were the visual developer / producer for a lot of more movies? What was it entail? Like you did artwork beforehand, or you were on set?
Yeah. So the department was created when I started back in 2010, and it was at that time it was only three of us. Four of us. It was artists, and then I was not doing any art, but rather working as a coordinator. And they were designing all of the key characters, all of the like hero costumes, all of the key props. They were also key framing, basically doing art pieces that could be proposed moments in the movie. So like some of the most iconic moments, like the hammer slam in Avengers when he comes down on Captain America, like finding moments like that.
Cool.
That they could either write into the script or that the director or writers are like, well, can we see what it looks like before we do it? So it kind of, it creates some sort of hype. And then later on, it became like, let's do moments that are going to be green screened so the actors can see like the moment in a piece of artwork that could inspire them to find an example that comes to mind is when we did Age of Ultron, when Scarlet Witch does the scream and blows up all the robots after her brother dies. That was a keyframe piece of art, and it was so beautiful. And they brought that to Elizabeth Olsen on set, and they were like, this is kind of the vibe. And she used that as a way to kind of picture it. So it was a lot of, what was great about the department was it let me be a part of the process from the developmental stage all the way through production, all the way into post, and getting to see how these movies get to come together and work with these incredibly talented people from different departments. And so it was really eye-opening, and I'm very grateful for that experience.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, one of my favorite panels I've ever been to was at D23. Andy Parks went through a lot of the artwork and stuff. So I assumed you worked with him because he also put together a lot of the artwork for the books, like behind the scenes art for the movies.
Yeah, I used to write those books. And Andy started on the same day I did. We were like same. Yeah, we both started on the same day. He's incredibly talented, super great guy. Yeah.
Well, one more question for Marvel, because my favorite MCU movie was definitely Captain America: Winter Soldier, because I love Bucky, So any memories working on that movie, or any artwork or pieces or anything like that? Because I love the way he looked on screen, man.
Yeah, that's Ryan Meinerding designed him. He also did Bucky on the first Captain, like the blue pea coat that he wore. Ryan has this amazing sense of, he's designed Captain America for all of his versions of his costume, and in the same thing with Bucky. He has a very distinct understanding of practicality and also design. So making sure that you give the fan service and finding small nuances from the comics to introduce into the costumes and the look, but also like making sure that they can raise their arms and like move. And because I think it's with these comic book movies, what you see is sometimes on a painting or an illustration, it can look really amazing. And then you start to build the costume and the person can't move. And, it happened often. And so, being mindful of that was something that I learned and was able to carry into something like Dreamcatcher, where it's like, you can use the design, but also making sure that it feels practical and that the person can move in it. So it doesn't feel too heavy or bulky.
I love it. Before we get into Dreamcatcher, you know from other interviews, here at Bionic Buzz, we're all about people's passions. I like to know where your passion. I guess you could call you're an artist, you're a storyteller, director. I mean, you're a storyteller, I assume. So where did your passion for creating storytelling kind of came from? Was there a comic book, TV show, movie inspired as a kid, or something that was just natural for you as a child?
Would it be great if it was like I was just born with it? It just
Yeah.
happened. I came out of the womb like this. No, it was Jurassic Park when I was 5. Yeah, 93, which is why I have this dinosaur tattoo on my arm.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
But it was like I don't want to say transformative because I'm 5, but like I just remember seeing the movie and feeling like I just changed. It was like it took me somewhere and it led me on this journey, and I was so invigorated by it. And I knew from that moment on that I wanted to find a way to do that to other people and be a part of telling a story that could potentially do the same thing. And multiple films throughout my life kind of enforced that same idea, but I will always attribute Jurassic Park to being the thing that kind of like ignited that fire. And I thought I was like, oh, maybe I want to be a paleontologist. Maybe I love dinosaurs. Maybe that's what, and it was like, it wasn't about that. When I kind of like looked at it, it was like, no, you want to like tell a story and let people experience dinosaurs. You know, you want to invite them into this place where you're creating a world that isn't. And it was a line I actually put into Dreamcatcher and the finale, which is something about, but somebody's like, you know, talking about creating worlds that aren't. And I think that's what we're all doing out here. You know, we're peddling fantasy stories.
Oh, absolutely.
And finding ways to hopefully invigorate the audience or relate to the audience or entertain them in a meaningful way.
Well, I love it. Well, Dreamcatcher, you know, it's about this like, I guess, underground like rave EDM party in downtown LA. And there's a DJ Dreamcatcher who wears this really cool mask. We'll get into that later. And, you know, someone's going around killing a bunch of people wearing the mask. We don't know who. So you're the writer and director. You're kind of stepping away from your MCU stuff to do this, you know? So, I mean, tell me that this is something that you've been like dreaming for a long time for something. And you finally are, you know, out on your own, you know?
Yeah, it's filmmaking I mean, it's no different than like acting, and there's a lot of other, you know, professions where it's kind of a hurry up and wait, and you can hustle all day long and you never know when something's actually going to take off. I've known Brandon and Crystal, whom I know you've already talked to
Yeah.
Crystal. I've known them for about 6 years now, and we originally met over our mutual adoration in a backyard barbecue of a love for like 90s genre fare. And we kept in contact over the years, but we had a mutual taste of in terms of like stories we really liked or wanted to tell. And this opportunity came up, and they had they came at me and they were like, we want to make an ensemble that's kind of like a love letter to the 90s in certain ways, with a modern twist, and we would love to have some sort of music element in it as well. And that was kind of the template that they gave me, and then they let me run. And I think it rarely happens that way, where you're given kind of a parameter, but you're not like, you don't feel so tied to something. And it really allowed me to jump into this world. And, you know, previously I had directed short films and written short films and music videos and, you know, built kind of it wasn't like, okay, now I'm going to go direct a movie and I have no, but yeah. So, you know, going from being a development executive into being more of, you know, a filmmaker, it was, and hopefully continues to be the path that I stay on, because it is, you know, where my real passion lies. Yeah.
Well, the mask looks so cool, and I you know, she was telling me that's someone who worked on the Guardians of the Galaxy's got to do it. So I guess walk through the design stage of it and then presenting it and getting it made, you know?
Yeah. So Josh Herman was the artist who designed the mask, and he and I had worked together for many years at Marvel. He's the guy that designed Groot for Guardians and had done many of the Iron Man armors that we saw in like Iron Man 3. And he has such a great understanding for unique spins, and just like simplicity, but also like a great sense of style and modern takes on the, like looking at the Iron Man suits, like finding ways to rebuild the same, you know, it's still the same kind of figure, but how do you reconfigure it? And when I asked him if he'd be interested in helping me on this project, he was, super gracious and gave me his time and his talents. And we started just shot in the dark, different designs. And because when I was writing it, I didn't really have like the vision, it wasn't like, oh, it's going to be this, but I knew it had to be something believable. It couldn't be something so scary that it's like, well, it still has to be a DJ mask, Dead Mouse isn't coming out in like a vampire face. It's got to be real. Because the audience has to believe it. And regardless who's, adopting the mask to wear, it's still tied to the fact that this person is a DJ who wears it. So Josh did a lot of different versions, and we came to this, the final design being more of an elongated human face with some kind of owl vibes to it. And then the design lines that kind of feel like a Dreamcatcher, the weavings of a Dreamcatcher throughout the mask.
I love those little aspects of it. So
and it circles.
I predict when the film gets really big and there's horror conventions again, I can buy the mask and go as cosplays.
Where the company that after we got it done and we designed it in 3D, SCPS was the company who did it, and I had worked with them at Marvel. They had done like the Crossbones costume for Civil War, and they were extremely kind to us in terms of budgeting. But we had 2 masks 3D printed that we used during production. But it was a really, it felt like, when you're making a low budget indie movie, there's moments where you kind of have to call in your favors, and I was so excited to see them kind of come in and help us out there, and make something that felt so cool and so like studio movie. It is inspiring to see that, that camaraderie that can come together when people are passionate about something.
I'm always curious about the film journey. Like, when did you start writing this? And, you shot in downtown LA, and now it's finally coming out, next month. So, talk us through, because I know it's a big process, and, if you didn't have the passion for it, you wouldn't go through with it,
Yeah. And all the rejection that comes along the way. But
absolutely. Yeah.
It was kind of it was a fairly tight timeline on this, because when they called me and said, hey, we have the financing, which rarely happens that way. Usually it's, hey, let's go find the financing. And then they called, Brandon Crystal called them. They're like, hey, we have this money. And this was in, I think it was like the end of September of 2018. And they were like, but we need to shoot the movie in January. So I wrote the first draft in 9 days. And then we spent about a month kind of shaping it a little bit more. By the middle of November, we were casting, and we cast through December, and we started shooting in January, first week of January. We were in post in mid-February. We finished the movie in November, and then we premiered at the Berlin Film Festival in last year, and then COVID happened.
Yeah.
Which I was going to say, so I'm sure my sentiment is echoed by many other filmmakers out there and so it kind of sat for a little while people figured out what we were doing. And it's great that we can be in this place where it's, we partnered with a wonderful distribution company, and I'm just really excited that it's finally being able to get out there.
Well, the one thing I always loved about movies in the 90s, they always had great soundtracks. I know Crystal said she might be doing a soundtrack for this one. I mean, like The Crow is still one of my favorite movies, and the soundtrack that goes along with it, And I understand why they don't do it like they do, because soundtracks don't sell as much as they did the CDs back then. But is there any work about putting together a soundtrack for this one?
Hopefully. I mean, it's interesting because we have it's not too dissimilar to how back in the 90s you also had music inspired by, and it was like all these alt rock.
I know it's different music genre for this,
and so we've got the score, which will have its own thing, and then there's like 16 original songs that are that were done for the film that I hope get released either on Spotify, or I know they're trying to figure out what they're going to do with it, if maybe like a limited edition vinyl or something like that. But it kind of was like, it lended itself to that vibe where it's like, well, it's a movie about music. Like, let's get some songs. And it's mostly like EDM-esque stuff. So it's exciting.
Very cool. Anything in the works you're allowed to talk about before I let you go, you know?
Yeah, we have a couple things with Brandon and Crystal that we're working on, trying to get something off the ground. I know she had mentioned the college thriller to you, that's kind of in the world of the skulls and the craft kind of intermixed together, super character heavy. And then just, yeah, there's a couple of things, but it's just like, I don't want to say anything too soon because everything's changing.
You don't want to jinx it.
No, and there's so many things that are changing so fast, in the world of this industry. So
absolutely cool. Well, where can we follow you on social media so when you are allowed to talk about upcoming things, you know?
Yeah. My Twitter is just Jake_squared. That's probably where I'm most active. I have Instagram, but I don't really use it. I should probably be more of a millennial, but I just have a hard time. Like, I don't take enough pictures. So Twitter plays probably the place that I talk the most. Unless you want to follow me on LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's one of the fun stuff's happening.
Yeah.